Do you want me to take over again?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
All right. Next up is law and licensing. Linda?
All righty. We had quite a fun time. We always do have a fun time in law and licensing. We approved the minutes unanimously. Then we worked on charter school expansion requests. Now, a lot of these schools, I think out of the 6, 4 of them were schools that had over-enrolled. And so as they described it to us, it was cleanup. So they were trying to get their enrollments to where they had over-enrolled. So that's why we have all of these expansion requests. The first one we looked at was Dixie Montessori Academy. We heard from Julie Wand, who was the director. She presented a request to increase enrollment by 25 students for the 2019 school year, and she answered some of our questions. Ultimately, we unanimously approved the motion to increase their enrollment by 25 students. And the committee moves that the board approve Dixie Montessori Academy Governing Board's request to increase enrollment by 25 students in the 2019 school year.
Okay. Could the committee move that the board approve Dixie Montessori, how do you say that again? Montessori Academy Governor's Board's request to increase enrollment by 25 students in the 2019 school year. Any discussion on the motion? Board Member Belknap.
Was there any discussion about their assessment data that is so poor, 24% in the English language, 9% in math, and 10% in science?
Yes, I brought it up to them. I expressed concern. The Law and Licensing Committee generally felt like that assessment data doesn't really tell the picture, and so that's kind of, I feel differently about that, but that's how they felt about it. I mean, if you want my opinion, it's a little bit different than the other committee members, but that's kind of how that went. That
Board Member
conversation
Belknap.
went.
Chair, follow-up. It might not show some things, but it does show something, that the comparison to the district around them and the state and how poorly they're doing, why are we giving them more students?
That
If
was
that's the
my
comparison.
question as well.
What was explained to us was that their demographics was different, that a lot of the students they service, English is their second language. So a lot of them came with the inability to really speak English well. And so they've been working on that, which is why their math scores have been low in their science, because in order for them to test well, they've got to be able to read those tests. And so they're working on that.
Actually, it said the demographics. If you'll see the.
That was
if
their
you'll see
explanation to us.
If you'll see
Okay.
the backup material, it tells you how its demographics are different. I think most of them's demographics were the same as the demographics around them, so.
And also, we need to remember that we're not sending students to them. It is a charter school, so parents, they have that information, so they can still choose to send their students. Parents are ultimately making the choice.
So I understand. It hasn't, we have, just for board information, we have previously not approved charters because of them. They had really, really low
I just said charter.
assessment. It's a concern for me to send more kids to a school that's got a 9 in math, but anyway.
Okay. Any further comment? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Will the nays raise their hand? Okay, let's do computer. Okay, we're going to do you want to call them out?
Yeah. Okay.
You're going to call them out, and
What will happen, because this is a close vote, I'm going to call out your names, and if you could all into your microphone say yea or nay so I can get those all and the public will know those. Member Belknap.
Nay.
Member Bolter. Member Bolter.
Oh, I'm a yay.
Member Cannon.
Nay.
Member Brittany Cummins is absent. Member Lisa Cummins.
Yay.
Member Ellis.
Yay.
Member Gravitt.
Yay.
Member Hanson.
Nay.
Member Lear.
Yay.
Member Nielsen.
Yay.
Member Reeby.
Nay.
Member Stokes.
Yay.
Member Warner.
Nay.
Member Wright is absent. Chair Huntsman.
Nay. So how many yays? We need 8.
There are 7 yays.
It fails.
Okay.
Okay.
Motion did not pass.
There has to be, it has to be 8 yeses.
We have to have
no
8
matter
to move.
what.
Okay, the no vote is 5. And we have 2 absent.
So you have to have 8.
Was Brittany in here a second ago when we did the verbal vote? Okay.
Okay, so moving on to the next thing. So we have 6 charter schools here to do. So the next one, Lincoln Academy. The committee heard, well, let's see, was it Lincoln Academy, Da Vinci Academy? We heard from Fred Donaldson, Executive Director for Da Vinci Academy, expressed the school's desire to increase enrollment and answered committee members' questions. Then we move that the board approve, let's see, the committee's going to, let's see. Member Bolter moved to approve Da Vinci Academy Governing Board's request to increase enrollment by 150 students in the 2019 school year. The committee moves that the board approve Da Vinci Academy's Governing Board's request to increase enrollment by 150 students in the 2019 school year.
Okay, the motion before the board is to approve Da Vinci Academy's Governing Board's request to increase enrollment by 150 students in the 2019 school year. Is there any discussion? Seeing none. Vice Chair Cummins, can I get you to move your water bottle on the other side? I can't see all
Or
of the mic.
Lisa?
Or I mean, say Lisa, sorry. Okay, I just want to make sure I can see all the lights. I don't want to miss somebody. Okay,
You know,
sorry,
just
Lisa.
to comment, yeah, you'll see that some of these schools have fantastic scores and are fantastic schools, and we had a lot of good conversation with them about those as well.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Voting was unanimous.
Okay, Lincoln Academy. Committee heard from Jake Hunt, school director, who shared the reasons why he'd like to increase Lincoln Academy student enrollment by 45. From this increase, an additional 24 kindergarten students and 21 student positions in the junior high could be enrolled. Member Bolter moved to approve Lincoln Academy Governing Board's request to increase enrollment by 45 students. Motion passed unanimously. This is one of those schools that really has great scores. As a matter of fact, we talked about that. They're blowing the state and the district out of the water as far as school achievement goes. And so Lincoln is doing very well. Yeah.
Okay. The motion for the board is that the committee moves that the board approve Lincoln Academy Governing Board's request to increase enrollment from 45 students in the 2019 year. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Voting was unanimous.
Okay, Scholar Academy. Committee heard the request from Sandy Shepard, Executive Director for Scholar Academy, that Scholar wants to add a 7th and 8th grade, 7th in 2019, 8th in 2020. Member Bolter moved to approve Scholar Academy. You were busy, Michelle. Scholar Academy Governing Board's request to increase enrollment by 125 students, adding grade 7 in 2019 school year and grade 8 in the 2020 school year.
Okay, the motion to the board is the committee moves that the board approve Scholar Academy Governing Board's request to increase enrollment by 125 students, adding 7th grade in 2019 school year and 8th grade in 2020 school year. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Voting was unanimous.
Okay, Spectrum Academy. The committee heard from Jamie Christensen, Spectrum Academy School Director, who spoke about their desire to increase student enrollment by 402 in the 2019 school year. They plan to build a new building for their increased student population. They have a waiting list of over 900 students, they said. Member Lear moved to approve Spectrum Academy Governing Board's request to increase enrollment by 402 students in the 2019 school year. That motion passed unanimously, and the committee moves that the board approve Spectrum Academy Governing Board's request to increase enrollment by 402 students in the 2019 school year.
The motion before the board is that the board approve Spectrum Academy Governing Board's request to increase enrollment by 402 students in the 2019 school year. Any discussion to the motion? Board Member Belknap.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to point out, too, that their scores are very low. However, when you look at their demographics, 83% of their students are as special ed. That's a real difference, and so that's why the difference in the scores. So I love this.
Any further comments? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Voting was unanimous.
Okay. Wasatch Waldorf. The committee heard the request from Wasatch Waldorf Charter School to increase enrollment by 100 students. Chair Hansen shared with the committee that the original request was denied last year due to lack of school data. She also shared the superintendency's concern about student safety with student loading area at the school. Emily Merchant, executive director from Wasatch Waldorf Charter School, along with a member of their governing board, answered questions and concerns. They also shared their reasons for the student increase, which was mainly to keep siblings together in the same school. So we did talk about the fact that they don't have any data, and our practice is to have 3 years worth of data before we approve either an expansion request or an enrollment increase. What they've asked for 100 students because they're turning away the siblings of the students in the school, and they don't want to do that. So, Member Bolter moved to approve Wasatch Waldorf Governing Board's request to increase enrollment by 100 students. Motion passed unanimously. The committee moves that the board approve Wasatch Waldorf Governing Board's request to increase enrollment by 100 students in the 2019 school year.
Okay. The motion before the board is to approve Wasatch Waldorf's Governing Board's request to increase enrollment by 100 students in the 2019 school year. Discussion to the motion, Board Member Lisa Cummins.
Board Member Hansen, was there discussion on why there is no data? Are they not collecting it?
They're
For 1 year?
new.
Oh, they're brand new.
They're new.
Okay.
Any further discussion to the motion? Board Member Reby?
So in previous cases, it said that the demographics were similar to the neighborhood. The demographics of this school are listed. How does that compare with the demographics of the schools around them? Is that
It
addressed?
should say on the, does it say on the form somewhere?
Well, usually it says that it is either close to the school or not, but this one, it just lists out the demographics. Do we know if it's similar to that or not? Because it just lists 12% economic disadvantage, 50. It's in Granite.
It's over by, no, it's Murray. Isn't it in Murray School District?
Wasatch Academy is in Holiday. It's right on Murray Holiday.
Okay, so it's in Granite. And so do you have any sense of whether their demographics are close to the demographics of the area, Sid? Sid came and spoke because it's Sid's neighborhood. She lives there.
Without seeing the numbers in front of me, it's only by my observation as I have seen families coming and going, and it mirrors the demographics just based on my observation of Cottonwood and other elementaries close by.
Can I ask another question? When they list the demographics, it would be nice to see them, compare them to the actual demographics of their neighboring schools instead of just listing them, because those numbers don't really help me unless I know what the other districts are like.
Any further discussion to the motion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Okay, will the noes please raise your hand? 2. Motion passes. Please continue. Oh,
Our two
hang
se-
on, one sec. Board Member Lear.
I just had a comment before we leave this section. I was troubled to note that the reason that these expansions were all before us is because they've already expanded, and now they're coming after the fact to ask for forgiveness and to be able to collect the WPU for those students. And I just want to say, as a board member in that committee, though I was sympathetic to some, not too sympathetic to others, I'm not going to be sympathetic in the future. This has been a long day. In the future, I really think that this needs to be cleaned up. And one of the reasons I was kind of listening today or yesterday is because they said that the Finance Committee is working on a more appropriate fix for this. And this is, those caps were set for a reason originally, and there's cap creep, let's say. And I really want to see that cleaned up for the future.
But before I lose my train of thought, can I throw something out there that in the report, it would be really nice for me if there was a non-compliance situation, which Board Member Lear, what you just stated. I would like to know that as these are coming out of committees. If we're moving to increase enrollment, anything that has to do with non-compliance, which this is, if they're over enrolled.
Well, and I can just tell you, Mark, that Chair Huntsman, can I just tell you that this is the problem that we had. The State Charter School Board gave them safe harbors, and I don't know what safe harbor means, but they said that means that it's okay for them to go over their enrollment. So I'm not sure all about what a safe harbor is, but they said that they gave them safe harbors so that it was okay for them to be over enrolled. And so I think that's something that we don't know about, and it hasn't been addressed to us, so.
Which,
I did want to point out, going back to Dixie Montessori, that was the other reason why we approved that additional 25 students, was because without it, they would be over their cap. They already service those 25 students.
okay.
It was so that they could be in compliance with the new stuff that's happening.
Okay, just as a board member, not as chair, as things are coming out of a committee to move someplace, if there's a non-compliant situation.
That's what it was for.
But it would be nice to disclose that to us as we're moving forward. And in this case here,
So can we recall
it was
that
to
vote?
clean up a non-compliance
Right,
situation.
that's what we were told.
I would have
So
liked to
could
have
we
had that.
recall that vote
Well, I
for Dixie?
did
we're
mention,
okay.
I did mention that up
I'd like
front.
to recall.
Remember that we
Yeah.
were cleaning up over enrollment,
But I didn't know
right?
for what school.
For all of
For
them.
4 of them.
All
All
of them.
4? Okay.
No,
Then I-
no, not Scholar and not,
Right.
Okay.
not Spectrum Academy. Those were new,
So with
those are
that
new.
new information, could we recall the vote for Dixie?
No.
No, we've already taken action. I'm just,
Or can I move?
Someone on the prevailing side could make a motion to revisit that, to reconsider the
It was,
There wasn't,
I mean, it was the,
it was the nays was the prevailing side.
yeah, so somebody that voted against can bring it back, but not one that brought
Okay,
it for.
are
but-
we? Okay,
But hang
can
on,
we
we've got
continue
another
on?
light. Just one sec, hold on. So that passed,
count the two that aren't here. as
so we're on to 2.3, but we have a few lights on some comments. So hang on one sec. Vice Chair Ellis.
Okay, so I had something in regards to this, but I also have a question now in regards to the recall process. But the charter board, and I don't know where Jennifer Lambert is, but she mentioned that they were working on fixing this so schools were in compliance, and that they had given them this time period to come into compliance. And part of the reason why this year we have so many asking for the extension was because they had given them this provision that they, as she said, the safe harbor type, to come into compliance, and that they notified them that they were going to be more strictly adhering to that policy. And so, anyways, I just wanted to explain that. And as far as the recall thing, I'm trying to understand, because the prevailing vote was the yays, and it was missing 1, 2.
No, the prevailing vote is the vote that won, and that would be the nays.
No, I didn't think there was a vote that won, because there was not 8 that.
The absent are no's, the counted as no's.
I know, but why would they count as no if they weren't here?
Isn't it someone who voted on the prevailing side?
Yes, yes,
was
the
no
prevailing
Would make a
side
motion
was
to
the
reconsider.
Lorraine, you don't
no's
count the
because
no
they
vote. That's what
prevailed.
I'm trying to.
count Brittany as a no because she wasn't.
No, she didn't. She
And
said
Jill.
she was absent.
No, she's
Yeah,
absent.
She
so weren't
listed
there
her
So
7
there wasn't
yay?
a 7.
No, the prevailing
wasn't-
side is the side that prevails, which is the nays.
But there wasn't a prevailing side.
There
'cause
wasn't a
nobody won
prevailing
by
side
8.
because it failed.
Can we all speak at once?
Okay,
Well, I had the mic.
Can I just continue?
No, sorry, I think that this is something that needs to be
yeah,
cleared up.
I think it is too. On the prevailing side, it's not, you don't, if, the prevailing isn't, has nothing to do with the
The
8
numbers.
count.
No one prevailed because.
No,
The nay, or
the nays prevailed.
what's that?
The nays prevailed.
Why?
The
They
nays.
didn't have 8, why did they?
Two that are absent are counted as.
No,
No.
no, it doesn't have
You
anything to
have
do with
8
that.
You have to have 8 votes to move something forward. There was not 8 votes to
Right,
move
so
something
how-
forward. But Angie, will you explain this, please?
So no one prevailed.
I mean, because you didn't have 8 on either side, the prevailing outcome of the motion was that it did not pass. So then the nays would be the prevailers.
Is
So if
that
somebody
written?
voted nay and they want
Yes,
to change
it's
their vote
Robert's
to a
rules.
yay, that person could make the motion
Robert's rules.
to reconsider your action, having voted on the prevailing side with the assumption that person's going to change their vote to a yay. Is that correct, Lorraine?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
It ends up being my, but I also, we do not measure the nays. We always measure the yays, and you have to have 8 or more to move something forward out of this body.
Right.
And so if we only have 9 people here, that makes it really difficult to move something
Right.
forward. Okay, Board Member Reeby?
No, it's-
Speaking to Member Lear's point, I do appreciate parent choice, and I do appreciate that we have this open boundaries and parents can go wherever they would like, and I do honor that. But as we increase parent choice, we need to realize that when we fund our schools and when we staff our schools, that it's not in the best interest of our students not to have an accurate number when school starts. Because as we move from school to school, we are losing funding for teachers. So I am not saying this to say that I don't want to have parent choice, but I'm saying that charter schools should establish their attendance early, and it shouldn't be a moving target after school starts. So I'm just requesting that when we think about this, please remember that the schools that these kids are coming from also are staffing their schools. And those parents have made a choice to put those kids in those schools, and they don't want any more turmoil in their lives than any parent who has a choice.
Are we ready to continue?
Okay, let me just go back to making the call here. It's not
Okay.
really the chair's call, but because I know the reality of our situation. It takes 8 to move, and the prevailing group can still be a minority. It doesn't have to be 8. So if someone from that prevailing group wants to bring something back, they can.
Okay.
So please continue.
Okay. R277509, licensure of student teachers and interns. Okay, so we had several that were due for their 5-year reviews and continuations, okay? So this is the first of those. Ben Rasmussen was there and said that staff had reviewed the rule and determined the rule continues to be necessary. Okay, so it's all we had, some of these were licensing rules that we know will change with the new licensing procedure, but they need to be continued. And so that's what this one is. It was just technical and conforming changes were made to it. Member Lear voted to approve and moved to approve and continue R277509 as amended on first reading. Motion passed unanimously. And the committee moves that the board approve and continue R277509 as amended on second and final reading.
Okay. The motion before the board is that the board approve and continue R277-509 as amended on second and final reading. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Voting is unanimous.
Okay, R277522, same issue here is another rule that's due for its 5-year review and continuation. Member Nielsen moved to approve and continue R277522 as amended on first reading. The motion passed unanimously, and the committee moves that the board approve and continue R277522 as amended on second and final reading.
Okay. The motion before the board is that the board approve and continue R277-522 as amended on second and final reading. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Voting was unanimous.
Okay, Ben Rasmussen then came and talked to us about R277515, and he reviewed staff suggestions for revisions with us and got our feedback. So that was just information and discussion only, no motion for the board. R277108, annual assurance of compliance by local school boards, is also due for its 5-year review and continuation. Angie and staff reviewed it and determined the rule continues to be necessary. I move to approve and continue R277108 as amended on first reading. The motion passed unanimously. The committee moves that the board approve and continue R277108 as amended on second and final reading.
Okay. The motion before the board is the board approve and continue R277-108 as amended on second and final reading. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Voting is unanimous.
Okay, so now here, those of you who've gone to sleep, here we're going to talk about data sharing agreement approval process, okay? We had a long conversation with Whitney Phillips and David Saleh. Oh, that sounds very French. Privacy auditor. No, I'm going to say it funny. In reference to the different options for the board to review and approve data sharing agreements. And so we went over all of this, kind of molded over, and this is what we're suggesting to the board. The committee voted unanimously to send student data sharing agreements with student personally identifiable information, PII, or student-level data to law and licensing for review when the data sharing agreement is requested by an outside agency or an individual. Okay, so that's the first part. And then this, do you want to
No,
do
why don't I
one
do-
motion at a time? Or do you want me to tell you the whole thing so you understand everything, where everything's going first? And then the second part is that if it's PII that's to be shared with a third party to provide services to USBE or data sharing agreements with no PII, we're asking that it just be put on the consent calendar. So those are the two motions, okay? So,
Okay, if I'm following what's written here,
yes, you can
it
follow
says
what's in there.
here that the committee moves, the motion before the board is that the board send student, or no, right here, motion to the board is that the board send student data sharing agreements with student personal identification information, PII, or student level data to law and licensing for review when the data sharing agreement is requested by an outside agency or individual. Did I state that correctly?
That's right. That's the first one.
Okay, that's the motion before the board. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Voting was unanimous.
Okay, and then there's the second one. The committee moves that the following data sharing agreements be included on the board's consent calendar for approval. USBE solicited data sharing agreements allowing PII to be shared with a third-party provider to provide services to USBE, and data sharing agreements with no PII or student-level data.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the board, that, I'm just trying to put that in the right, that the board says that the following data sharing agreement be included on the board's consent calendar for approval. USBE solicited data sharing agreements allowing PII to be shared with a third-party provider to provide services to USBE, and then under here it says a 4, but data sharing agreements with no PII or student-level data. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. It's a motion before the board. Any discussion?
Chair.
Yes.
I just, before we moved off this item, I just wanted to thank the data people for entertaining this and doing this, I don't even know what they called it, but to come up with this plan, because it is putting the burden on those that are coming to us trying to get data on our students, to explain why, and so now board members can be more educated, know exactly what data points are being collected. And so I just wanted to thank them.
Okay. Any further comments or discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Voting was unanimous.
Okay, then we looked at several data sharing agreements. So we'll go through those really quickly here. There was a data sharing agreement. These were all in your packets for the Utah System of Technical Colleges, UTEC. And Member Lear moved to approve the data sharing agreement for UTEC, and it passed unanimously. The committee moves that the board approve the UTEC data sharing agreement.
The motion before the board is that the board approve the UTEC data sharing agreement. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Voting was unanimous.
Okay, then the Utah Department of Health was there to talk to us about a data sharing agreement with URAD, but Mike Bell is still working on that contract, so no, we haven't seen the contract yet, and no action was taken. So then the Center for Research on Educational Outcomes, CREDO, the committee voted 3-2 to approve CREDO at Stanford. CREDO at Stanford is the name of the thing. We weren't at Stanford, just so you know. Members Linda Hansen, Carol Lear, and Scott Nielsen voted in favor, and members Elisa Ellis and Michelle Bolter opposed. The committee moves that the board approve the CREDO at Stanford data request.
The motion before the board is that the board approve the CREDO at Stanford. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. Let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Will the noes please raise their hand? We have 3. Okay. Please continue.
Okay, then there was
3.
one for Yushi.
Oh, hold on, hang on. Hold on, we missed, thank you. Okay,
Okay, are we ready to go ahead? Okay.
please continue.
Okay. Then there was one for Yushi, Utah System of Higher Education. Member Lear moved to approve. Oh, that should say Yushi. Sorry. USHE data sharing agreement. The motion passed unanimously. So Chair, so you know it, that should say USHE, U-S-H-E instead of UTEC.
Got
The
it.
committee moves that the board approve the USHE data sharing agreement.
Okay, the motion before the board is that the board approve the USHI, U-S-H-I, data sharing agreement.
USHE,
Oh, what did I get? U-S-H-E, sorry.
yeah.
I don't know. The motion before the board is that the board approve the USHE data sharing agreement. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Voting was unanimous.
Okay, then there's one for the Utah Department of Corrections, so that's UDOC. So that one needs to be changed as well, UDOC. Member Lear moved to approve UDOC data sharing agreement. The motion passed unanimously. The committee moves that the board approve the UDOC data sharing agreement.
Okay, the motion before the board is to approve the Utah Department of Corrections, UDOC data sharing agreement. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, now this one, this was board bylaws, and I don't have it here on my paper. It was section 8A of the board bylaws, and I actually need the change, are the changes up somewhere, Angie's?
It's on today's summary, 1993, it's the second document.
Angie, do you have a?
Here we go.
Okay,
Okay, so it's on board docs, okay, and it's on page 8, is it page 8?
Bottom of page 7.
Bottom of page 7. Okay. This was a request, I think, of board leadership and Lorraine, that we change so we can do the calendar, okay? So 8 meetings A would be changed to say, the board shall meet at the call of the chair and at least 11 times per year. The board shall approve a meeting schedule prior to January 1st for the following year. That's instead of in November or December. So it just says prior to January 1st. Is everybody clear on that? So I move to approve the amendments to Section 8A of the board bylaws, and the vote passed unanimously. The committee moves that the board approve the amendments to Section 8A of the board bylaws.
the motion for the board is that the board approve the amendment to section 8A of the board bylaws. Any discussion? Board Member Stokes.
Just out of sheer curiosity, how did we get the change made to having an all-day Thursday meeting and not an evening on? I understand it's not an evening, but it is relevant because it is talking about the scheduling of the, so I think it is relevant. Board Member Belknap. Right.
It's not.
Okay, are you're speaking, yeah.
I'm okay. I don't need to talk about it.
Okay. All right, back to the motion. Any further discussion? Board Member Belknap.
Yes, I have some concerns with prior to January 1, because I think if we do it in December, it's too late. I think if we do it in November, it's too late. If we're not making our schedule sometime in September or October for the following year, we're already late. And I would like it to say prior to something sooner than January 1.
Can I respond to?
Okay, just one, I'm just watching hands that go up and light. Vice Chair Ellis, then Cummins, then Reby. That's what my eyes see.
I like
my
what Board
glasses.
Member Belknap's saying. My only, the only thing I think we need to think about it is on election years, when you have new board members coming in, either that or we just, you don't worry about them. Yeah.
Well, obviously it's sacred this year.
Okay. Board Member Cummins, and then Board Member Reby.
I just want to remind the board what we went through, how much fun we had, and how prolonged we let it go. And, so, just, I'm trying to add a little chuckle here, Chair.
Thank you. Board Member Reby.
I guess this would be a request for information. When do we discuss the times of our meetings, and when are we going to discuss the times of our meetings? And I would really like to have Member Stokes' question answered. So when would be the appropriate time to bring that up?
Board comments is the most appropriate time to ask questions, ask for more information, get something, as you're wanting to put something on an agenda or make requests. But
So would that be at the end of this meeting during
that would
board
be
comments?
correct. We mostly want to speak to the motion.
Okay. I can request
At this time.
information at any time, though?
Yeah, you can request information and that, yes. Board Member Hanson.
And so we were told, sorry, in law and licensing that this was a request from board leadership and Lorraine. So if somebody could explain to us why you wanted it changed, then that would probably be helpful.
Okay. Board Member, go ahead, Board Member, or Vice Chair Ellis.
So the discussion in board leadership was that instead of having a meeting where we have a big, long drawn out, that we just set a calendar and just stick to it, and we just say this is the date, and, a board members always would have the option to request to amend or do anything like that, but the idea was just to not have that meeting where we have to have a big, giant discussion on calendar, but we just kind of set a calendar for the year before earlier. And so I like the September, October time frame, but like I said, I just had some concerns on election years when you have when you may or may not have a big turnover. So
The other thing that I just want to remind you is, and it's on the agenda today, is if we set it early, and then it's subject to being amended. But it's really handy to get it on paper and get it started, and then depending on what's happening and what situations are there, then it can be changed. But at least it's on a calendar. Board Member Reby.
So are we going to talk about the calendar now, or are we talking about the calendar later? Because as we discuss
So
this.
we want to follow the agenda.
Okay.
And so on the agenda,
When do we-
it's actually on our agenda. When you go to my report,
Okay,
you'll find that there's a calendar.
Okay.
We're going to be talking about it.
great.
So if we get to that report today, I hope. Board Member Cannon.
I appreciate board leadership putting together that calendar. I noticed that there was a lot, it was like the first week of the month, the meetings were scheduled. Thank you for doing that. I'd never seen anything like what we got into last year. It was amazing. So thank you for planning ahead and doing that. And I do appreciate Vice Chair Ellis noting that when there is an election year on the board, then those new board members have opportunity to attend that board meeting and vote on board leadership. And I think that it would be a good time to introduce them at least to the calendar and not have something set way before they had any chance to see or do anything about it.
Board Member Belknap.
I'd like to make an amendment to this motion
Okay.
and amend it that by October 1, we have the next year's calendar available so we can plan and be ready. And even if there's a new election, they'll know by October 1 in the year they're running what's coming. That they'll know what's there. Yeah, they could still amend
We
it.
have an amendment to, instead of you're substituting January.
I think October's a good time.
I know, but
unless somebody-
Okay.
Yeah. Approve a meeting schedule by October 1. By October board meeting.
Okay, but you're wanting to take away January 1st
And change it to the October board, by October board,
by the October
by October board meeting.
board meeting. That's what you want.
I can't see.
Okay, we have an amendment. Did we have a second? Did I hear a second? Carol, okay. Any discussion to the amendment? Seeing none, let's vote on the amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No. Will the noes raise their hand? Okay. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, hold on, hang on a sec. Did you get the noes?
I got my nose, but how many eyes?
Will the ayes raise your hand?
I think we better do a roll call.
7. They didn't, there's 7 that didn't pass.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The motion, or the amendment, motion to the amendment passes. Now we're going back to the original motion, which is amended, to have the board meeting schedule set by October 1, the previous year. By the October board meeting, the previous year. In. Yeah. Yeah, that was her amendment. Okay. Now we're speaking, okay, we're voting, okay, is there any discussion to the amended motion?
Please
See-
repeat the amendment.
Okay. The motion is, the committee moves that the board approve the amendments to section,
So this is no longer a committee motion because it's been amended.
okay, all right. The motion is that the board approve the amendments to section 8A of the bylaws, including the amendment that substitutes the January,
Okay, will you just read what it says now?
well, I'd have to open it up.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
just say what you want
I don't have it
to
open.
say.
The board shall approve a meeting schedule in by or in the October meeting in the previous or following year. However you need to say it there, Lorraine.
Wait, are we redoing it? Because we already voted on it.
No,
What
we
was the
approved
motion?
the
What was the
amendment.
motion we
Was just the
voted on?
amendment. The amendment.
We
Yeah,
haven't
but what
voted
did
on
we-
it yet. We have
Yeah,
not
we did.
voted
We
on
voted on the amendment.
2.9.
No, we voted on the amendment. What was the
We
amendment?
voted on the amendment. We're restating the motion. The amended motion says,
The board shall approve a meeting schedule by October board meeting.
Or in the
by-
October
you
board
can say
meeting.
by conclusion of.
Okay, conclusion. I like that. Conclusion of the October board meeting.
Well, I don't have that right in front of me. So will you state it as amended?
The board shall approve a meeting schedule. Do you want in the October board meeting? Because I think you said by the
In.
October.
During.
During the October board meeting. I think it might work better just to say that the Board of Leadership will provide a draft by that date, but that's.
Nope.
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 Okay, well, the amendment that we said yes
already
to.
voted-
I know
We
what I'm
already
doing
voted on
now
the
till the
amendment.
end
What
of
was
June,
it?
And I can't.
We can't change it.
I know,
mean, we
which
could
was-
change it, but we need to know what the amendment was. Lorraine, what did we just vote on? It was by. So it was the board shall approve a meeting schedule by the October board meeting. For the
Okay.
for the following year. It needs to go for the following year before the, you know what I mean? The board shall approve a meeting schedule for the following year by October board meeting.
I'm not sure if that's exactly, I think that's the intent.
She said
Can
by
we do it by
October
intent,
meeting.
Lorraine?
Chair can restate it how he wants it. make more sense, the chair can restate.
Okay.
Do you want to see it? Here, I'll bring it to you. Okay.
I mean, let's just be
board
real.
shall
We want it
approve
in
the
the,
meeting
in
schedule.
the
Okay.
October meeting.
Under 8A, the board shall approve a meeting schedule by the conclusion of the October board member, or board meeting prior,
This actually needs to
I should say prior, to the following year. Or should it be prior or for?
just put for the.
Okay, I'll say it then.
The board.
The board shall approve a meeting schedule.
For the following year, for the following year.
Okay, but let me, okay, I'll restate it. The board shall approve a meeting schedule
For the following year.
for the following year by,
During the October board.
or no, during, okay, thank you, during the October board meeting.
We voted on by.
If you say during, that means that's the meeting you have to do it, you can't do it.
Yeah, we said by.
By. Did I say for? How? Well, I'm just going to state what I think it should then. The board shall approve a meeting schedule by the, oh, but we can do it earlier.
You're looking at what it states is approval. So you would approve it in October. You could present it anytime you wanted before that and get input. But the
Okay.
approval would be in October.
Okay, I like that. The board shall approve a meeting schedule in the,
That's what I was saying.
is that, am I saying it right?
Well, it was voted a certain way, so I mean, if everyone's okay with that, I just don't think you should change the amendment without it being voted on. That's
Okay,
my-
well, I'm
that's my-
trying to get the,
Yeah.
well, to the intent.
Yeah.
Well, what it said, this is what was voted on. The board shall approve a meeting schedule.
Prior to the completion of the October.
The original said prior to January 1 for the following year. The amendment said that, the amendment was,
I think prior to the completion of the October board meeting,
the amendment was,
right?
was prior to.
The completion of the.
So if we read it word for word, the board shall approve a meeting schedule prior to the conclusion
Of the October,
of the October board meeting for the following year.
yes.
Amen.
Yep,
Did you,
perfect, yep.
did you
She's
say,
got- Lorraine
okay,
has it.
And that's the same intent.
okay, there's no any word changes, everything?
Nope.
Okay, but that could be amended.
I have an amendment.
Okay,
Okay, Lorraine, can you read that back? Should
Well,
you
no.
read that back for us?
Do you want me to?
yes, please do.
Okay, what I has, the motion, as restated by the chair, the board shall approve a meeting schedule prior to the conclusion of the October board meeting for the following year.
Okay. That is the motion.
There's also this and up here that we added.
Okay, but that's already included, so if we read the whole thing, but
Do you want to read the whole thing?
the whole thing says that the board shall meet at the call of the chair and at least 11 times a year, so that's already implied in there, so none of that was changed. So we're dealing with this. Okay, I think we have on the discussion, Vice Chair Ellis.
Okay, so this isn't something I sold on, just something I wanted to put out there if anyone thought this was a good idea, so that we don't end up getting a calendar the day before we're voting and we can look at our schedules. I'm wondering if anyone would like to entertain the idea of putting in their board leadership shall provide a draft calendar by September, the month before, for, to be voted on. And you can wordsmith that, but, so I make that in a moment. Well, we could, it's just, we're not going to be board leadership forever, so I don't know if you want that in there.
Board Member Lear?
You're just asking for someone who's.
I'm just asking if anyone thinks that's a good idea, so you don't get a calendar the day before a vote.
And here's another idea, if we're in the spirit of ideas about the
Let's not do
calendar.
ideas, let's do motions.
Oh, a motion?
Let's
Okay.
move some, let's move things forward.
I would like to set the calendar and it not be changed after the February board meeting. That would be, is anybody interested in that? Because I think,
No, because sometimes things come up.
staff is. You don't get a vote.
Okay,
So I guess I make
Board
that a
Member
motion.
Lear is,
I was just floating an idea. That wasn't
Yes.
a motion.
and
Floating.
we're all over this calendar conversation again, which people say we don't want to repeat, but once something's set in, once a calendar is set, as any other organization, it's a guide, but it is subject to change. I would hope that it's subject to change depending on certain circumstances.
Yes.
And so, and the whole intent of this is starting early and while it's on the agenda day is just get it set, live with it,
Yeah, but
and
it doesn't help us to set it and then change it month after month after month.
but if you make them, but let me speak back to, or on the discussion on this is, if you say it can't be changed, then your hands are really, really tied. So you can choose your leadership who puts your schedule together, which you will in December, and live with the consequences of those choices like you're living with now. Yes, Board Member Lear.
People don't have to come. I mean, we don't need to change the schedule to accommodate every person who wants to attend. If every person was necessary to every meeting, that would be different, but they're not.
Okay. That's
sad
true.
to say.
Okay.
So I guess
Vice
I'm
Chair.
going to officially make that amendment that we just add in some language that board leadership shall provide a draft calendar the month before the vote. Approval.
Do we have a,
We already have one.
okay, so we have an amendment, a second amendment.
We haven't voted on it.
Okay, we have a second amendment. Did we have a second? Okay, second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Voting was unanimous. Okay, we're back to the amended motion. And Lorraine, are you ready to restate that?
Okay, the part that we're talking about, there's that first section that we didn't change, and then the board shall approve a meeting schedule prior to the conclusion of the October board meeting for the following year. Then an addition will be made that board leadership shall provide a board calendar the month before the approval.
Draft. Okay. That's a motion before the board. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Can I say thank you for my early schedule?
Okay. Voting was unanimous. Okay, please continue.
Okay. Board Policy 1002, Rulemaking Procedures. During a prior board meeting, there was a question about Board Policy 1002 as it applies to amended rules or only newly enacted rules. This is where you as board members get to ask to have rules brought before the board, okay? The board policy has been updated to, 1, provide additional clarification on how a board member may request a board rule to be prepared for the board's consideration, and 2, direct the superintendent to wait for future board action before filing a notification with the Office of Administrative Rules of a rule's effective date as described under certain circumstances. Okay, the committee discussed an amendment, and so if you look at Board Policy 1002, it is on page 3 at the top, where we added, it used to say the board chair shall notify the superintendent that the board is likely to discuss the rule in an upcoming board meeting for potential action on the rule. Now it says, the committee amended it to say the board chair or board leadership notify the superintendent that the board is likely to discuss the rule in an upcoming board meeting for potential action on the rule. So that was the one change that we made. And then we, there was some conversation about after a public hearing, giving feedback, or not feedback, giving information to people who have spoken at the public hearing. And so they talked about that a little bit. We talked about that, and they will be bringing some suggestions back on that, on a policy. And it would probably be added to this Board Policy 1002. Then the committee voted unanimously to approve this Policy 1002 as amended, and moves that the board approve Board Policy 1002 as amended.
Okay, the motion for the board as a committee move that the board approve Board Policy 1002 as amended. Discussion, Board Member Belknap.
Sorry, Chair. On number 8, isn't there, Angie, you might be able to help me, or you, Linda, isn't there a procedure and a process already in place of when to file once the vote is taken by this board and when things should be filed? And why are we changing that? There's been a rhythm, or at least, I don't know what it is.
Can I say something?
Okay, Angie.
So there is not a statute or rule that governs that. We have kind of a unique, most of the administrative rules are written assuming that there's an agency with somebody like me or the superintendent drafting these rules, and there's not an elected board or a board that votes on them. And so after the comment, what the administrative rule says is that the agency shall consider the public comment and then make a determination whether they want to make changes to the rule or not, but it doesn't have a prescribed process. And then if they decide that they don't need to amend the rule based on the comments, they can file an effective date. And if they do believe there needs to be an amendment, they amend the rule and they start the process all over. So essentially, we've kind of had an unwritten rule or practice that if there's no public hearing, or if somebody like the board doesn't say, oh, if the board says we want to reconsider our actions, or there's a public hearing, I have not filed that effective date when I normally would, if that makes sense. So if there's no public hearing, I will generally, at the earliest date you can, once that 30-day public comment period is over, I can file it as early as 7 days, but no later than like 120 days after that. I will just file it at the earliest moment, always. And when we've had public hearings, we've waited. And so in some ways, we're memorializing what the practice has been. This has been the practice. It's just not memorialized anywhere, and it's not addressed in statute, and it's not addressed in rule. And so instead of it looking like I'm going to go ahead and file an effective date when the board may want to take some action based on that comment, this is kind of this essentially codifies or describes what we have been doing.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any further discussion? The motion before the board is to approve Policy 1002 as amended. See no further comment. Let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Voting is unanimous.
Okay, so then there were a couple of rules that we postponed, R277621 and R277211, and we'll take those up in October. And then we talked about one internal audit for Granite School District. Doug Larson was there from Granite School District to talk to us about it. And we voted unanimously to accept the corrective action taken as sufficient, and that no further corrective action is necessary related to the Granite School District audit. Then there was some confusion. Now, I've heard that the board needs to take a similar motion, and I've heard the board doesn't need to take a similar motion. So it's here if we need to take it. I don't know if we do or not, to close those audits, since it's a new procedure. I don't know.
Angie?
Thank you. So I conferred with Debbie Davis, your internal audit director, right here. And we kind of worked on this language that is now in the summary of action because we don't need to take a motion to close the audit. The audit's been closed. But Debbie and I agreed that this might be the appropriate language, but I don't want to speak for you, Debbie.
Well, essentially, so this is a new process, something that we're doing, bringing these audits to the committees to consider the corrective action on the audit. So the audit's done, everything's done there. This is just the corrective action. We don't actually have a policy directing exactly what needs to happen. So whether it's a board motion or a committee action, I guess that's up in the air. It's been inconsistent from committee to committee, I believe. And I currently have it as an audit committee agenda to say, okay, exactly how do we want to handle this? So I don't know if we want to punt on that and just leave it as there was committee action and go with that. That's kind of how the finance committee handled it. And I'm not just exactly sure what standards and assessment did, but it's different. So if we work in audit committee to get something consistent for next month and moving forward and get a policy written on this, I think it would be very helpful.
Okay. If I could speak on this just for a second, we are not required to do that, to close an audit. You guys got that. But it is important that we have some kind of follow through, and we already have that by committee. That was the intent. And then the intent was to come back and report. And I just think it adds another layer of must do, shall do's that's not required by statute or anything. It would be required by rule. And I'm personally not in favor of adding more, because I don't think it's going to help with the integrity of the audit. The other part of this is if we move to accept, what do we really gain from this? Because it's already there. So I'm not seeking a motion. Yeah, I think just that your committee reviewed it would be sufficient, but we can talk more in audit. So thank you. Do you have
Thank
anything
you.
else?
That's it?
That concludes your report? Okay, thank you very much.